Depends how you measure number of people that laugh. You know, it's all right. Good evening, Cochrane. We are here tonight for the February 9th regular council meeting. The meeting has now been called to order and we need to adopt the agenda. However, we need to have a discussion about our next committee of the whole meeting / strategic planning session. So I would like to seek a motion for an amended agenda, which would include item 5D for council to discuss that meeting. Can I get a motion as such?
Motion.
Councillor Singh?
Yeah.
All in favor? Carried. Next up, adoption of minutes. Councillor McDonald, I see you nodding your head.
I make that motion.
All right, all in favor? Carried. No delegations this evening. Let's head right into business. Let's start with item 5A, Bylaw 02, 2026, Cochrane Municipal Policing Committee Bylaw Amendment. Minister Juden, please take it away.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and councillors. I'm before you tonight to request passing of the proposed amendments to the Cochrane Municipal Policing Committee Bylaw through second and third reading of Bylaw 02, 2026. At a prior presentation from me at regular council on January 26th, I informed you that due to new legislative requirements under Bill 49, the Public Safety and Emergency Services Statutes Amendment Act, and changes to the Access to Information Act and the Protection of Privacy Act, our current Municipal Policing Committee bylaw required some amendments. The proposed amendments are straightforward and relate to the removal of the necessity for a public complaints director and replacing FOIP references with the new Access to Information Act and Protection of Privacy Act. Although relatively minor in nature, these amendments ensure that our policing committee bylaw is aligned and in compliance with the most recent legislative changes. Administration respectfully requests that council accepts the proposed amendments and gives second and third reading to Bylaw 02, 2026, the Cochrane Municipal Policing Committee Bylaw Amendment.
All right, can I get a motion? Councillor Federico?
I'll make the motion to move option 1. I do have a question for you about it though. When it comes to the committee, kind of removing that piece of having like a delegated person that we would delegate off of that committee, now it's moved into, I guess, a provincial, I'm assuming, kind of body that would regulate any sort of complaints?
For certain complaints, yes, that's correct. For municipal policing, municipal police services. So the RCMP will still handle all complaints coming to them.
Okay, okay. And was there any reason why to go into kind of an external body? Is it just so that you can have peers judging peers complaints type of things?
You're
not sure.
Yeah, to the deputy mayor, I'm not sure what the reasoning was behind that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, any other conversation, comments, questions? Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate we're just following with the province's direction on this one. Can I get an update on this committee? Has it started meeting yet?
Through the mayor to Councillor McFadden, yes, it has. It had its inaugural meeting in late 2025, I guess it would be. We've held another meeting since then. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 28th, I believe. Councillor Wilson is the council's representative on that committee. And yeah, all.
Oh, that's good enough. I just had lost track of the status of it, so thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, any further conversation? I have nothing to add. Call the question. All in favor of second reading? Carried. And we still need a motion for third reading. Somebody could please make that. Councillor McFadden? Okay. Any conversation? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next up, item 5B, FCSS Advisory Board, Terms of Reference Amendment as well here. Mr. Knox.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may know, the FCSS Advisory Board functions in an advisory capacity to Town Council and administration to enhance strengthen and stabilize family and community life in our community. Administration is seeking council's recommendation to amend the FCSS Advisory Board terms of reference, public at large membership, from 5 public at large representatives for the town to 7 public at large representatives. Increasing the overall FCSS Advisory Board membership from 7 to 9 members will result in a positive impact for our community. Additional members will allow our FCSS Advisory Board to enhance their fundraising efforts, a critical function of the board. Additionally, members will help raising additional funds for the community is imperative, as per the funding requests that we receive often are much larger than the dollars that are currently available for our community groups. The benefits of increasing our membership really extend beyond fundraising. A larger membership will also enhance the diversity and broaden perspectives, which are invaluable for the work of our FCSS Advisory Board and social services inside of our community. Fairly straightforward, what we're looking to do here. Open to any kind of questions, but that's our recommended action for council.
All right. Council, can I get a motion? Councillor Singh?
Sure. I'll make the motion to council amend the FCSS Advisory Board terms of reference, membership from 5 public at large to 7 public at large. Yep.
All right, any conversation? Call the question. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Did we do a second motion here?
Yes, so there is a second motion as part of this, and maybe I might rely on Ledge Services a bit for here in support, because we're also looking to appoint those 2 members. So as you're previously aware, we would have gone through our invitation to apply process. We had several amazing, outstanding candidates that we would like to have council review. My understanding is that council might go in camera for a quick review of the proposed candidates that we have and the ability to appoint an additional 2 as of today.
Okay. Councillor Verdigo?
I'll make the motion to go in camera, but one quick question. There are no new members added to this list. This was the same list that we have previously received.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. So yeah, I'll make the motion to go in camera.
Okay, council, that's regular process. All in favor? Carried. Let's retire Can I get a motion to come out of closed session? Counselor McDonald.
I motion to come out of closed session.
Okay, thank you. All right, everyone fill in your sheets, and then admin will come and collect them and tally them up. Do we need a 5-minute recess while you tally those up? Yes, please. Okay, let's come back just before 6. Give it 5 minutes. Everyone take a All right, is everyone back? Let's get to it. So before we turn it over to Mr. Knox, thank you very much to everybody in the public who applied. There were several very great candidates. We're very fortunate to have so many eager volunteers putting their names forward in Cochrane. So please let us know who won the secret ballot.
Yes, so council has selected Fabian Martin and May Depositar to join our FCSS advisory board. All right, excellent. Can I get a motion from council to appoint the candidates who won the closed ballot? Councilor McFadden?
I love that you position that as one secret ballot. Anyhow, I'm moving the recommended action that council appoint Fabian Martin and May Depositar to the FCSS Advisory Board as members effectively February 9th, 2026 to December 31st, 2028. And certainly thank those individuals and everybody who applied. It's great to see so much interest in being part of Cochrane Story.
All right, I shall skip conversation and call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Knox.
Thank you.
Next up, Bow River Strategy. Ms. DeLorme.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Bow River is one of Cochrane's defining natural features, and over the past 2 years, administration has been working towards a clear, long-term strategy to guide how decisions are made along the corridor. Tonight, administration is recommending Council approve the Bow River strategy as presented. The strategy establishes shared principles and priorities for stewardship, access, and activation, while maintaining Council's authority over future site-specific decisions. Council's reviewed the draft at Committee of the Whole and directed administration to circulate it to community associations prior to returning for approval. A summary of that feedback is included in tonight's presentation. And with that, I'll be turning it over to Chris Nelson from Urban Systems to do the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. Thank you for the opportunity to bring back the Bow River strategy to Council for consideration tonight. Tonight we have a condensed presentation relative to the Committee of the Whole. We'll walk through the vision, the engagement inputs that shape the strategy, and proposed framework to help ensure a resilient, connected, and well-stewarded Bow River corridor over the next 20 years. The Bow River corridor is one of Cochrane's most treasured natural assets, but it's facing growing pressure. As you know, recreation demands have increased, Cochrane's population is expanding, and in many areas, we're seeing fragmented management and decision-making along the corridor. The Bow River strategy introduces a long-term vision, a guiding document that sets shared principles and priorities for stewardship, access, and resilience across the entire corridor. The intent is not to prescribe civic projects today, but to create a framework that the future decisions can be measured against, so we can protect what makes this corridor special while thoughtfully shaping its future. This could influence town policy, future investment decisions, and shape how the town integrates with the riverfront long-term. There are a number of other communities that have developed river and waterfront strategies. Their experience suggests that the most successful outcomes emerge when early conversations remain focused around principles, priorities, and decision clarity before turning to individual areas or concepts. For example, experiences from Calgary, Edmonton, and Quesnel highlight the importance of early clarity to avoid future conflict or reactive decision-making, principles that guide future diverse proposals without over-prescribing outcomes, and a long-term vision endorsed by Council with flexibility to adapt over time. Establishing principles and a framework to support future decision-making is critical for the long-term stewardship of the corridor. For the strategy, the corridor includes the Bow River from Cochrane's west to east boundary with a 200-meter offset on each side. That offset is intentional. Many of the influences on the river, such as slopes, vegetation, and trail infrastructure, occur well beyond the shoreline. So this boundary ensures transition zones that interface with and impact the river corridor are considered. This draft strategy reflects and is informed by research, engagement, and collaboration. Through the development of the strategy, the team engaged with residents, user groups, technical partners, staff, council, and community associations. Across all engagement phases, we heard consistent themes. People spoke about the importance of prioritizing conservation and the environment health, while also improving safety, river access, trails, and basic amenities. There's significant interest in year-round programming, shaded seating, washrooms, public art, and off-leash areas balanced with stewardship needs. We also heard a strong desire for interpretive and educational opportunities, Indigenous storytelling, and experiences that reflect Cochrane's identity, with over 200 participants helping to shape the strategy. At the Committee of the Whole on January 19th, clarity was provided around several different items. We wanted to highlight a few of those again tonight. Firstly, regarding the scope and intent of the strategy. The strategy is a long-term vision for the entire corridor within the town's boundaries that focuses on establishing key principles, priorities, and decision clarity. There was also discussion around energy and activation area identified in the strategy, particularly around future uses. The strategy contemplates recreation, community gathering, and small business uses to integrate with new development to the north of Greystone and future energize the riverfront. Council also highlighted concerns, especially in areas like Jim Elfman Park and the broader energy and activation area around dog use, pathway conflicts, and safety. We acknowledge that these are recognized conflict points, and the strategy provides guidance on reducing pressure through signage education, unleash river access, with future implementation phases exploring physical separation opportunities for off-leash parks with water amenity features to reduce environmental risk and impacts. We also heard from council that the priority setting and making sure impact and action was felt early on. The strategy supports the prioritization of actions, providing a criteria and identifies priorities that council can advance on in the short term. Finally, council asked that the strategy could be shared with community associations. The strategy was circulated to community associations, and we received some good feedback that we want to share tonight. The feedback received emphasized the importance of environmental protection tools, water quality, habitat, flood risk management, and watershed integration. These elements have been a key to the creation of the strategy and will hopefully continue to be a priority through implementation. The community association feedback also stressed a desire for ongoing involvement in the strategy as it moves forward to implementation. That expectation has been built into the governance and reporting structure of the strategy. Lastly, we heard concerns about existing industrial uses in proximity to the river corridor and how cumulative and site-specific effects could continue to be evaluated and or how the strategy could be utilized to guide future decisions around such uses. The strategy is a long-term vision for the corridor and provides a framework to support decision-making as uses evolve and change ultimately over time. The vision of the Bow River Corridor, and for this strategy as a whole, is deeply connected to the guiding principles. Having overarching principles help provide clarity and guide future direction. These principles reflect what we heard from the community, that the river is ours, to steward, to share, to explore, and to belong. The guiding principles represent our collective aspirations for how the corridor should function, feel, and evolve over time. But more importantly, they don't just live at the front of the document. These principles are woven throughout. Every recommendation, priority, and action in the strategy is built from these principles, supported by engagement, feedback, and grounded in the data gathered through environmental assessment, policy and market overview, or market reviews, and site analysis. The first guiding principle based on the level of feedback and engagement we heard is protect the river's natural value for today and future generations, ensuring that all development and growth is balanced by stewardship. Another one of the guiding principles is creating something special, be bold. We recognize that the strategy has some bold opportunities for council to grapple with. Ultimately, the town is the stewards of the river corridor, and some tough decisions will need to be made to protect what is special with the corridor and to advance some opportunities in the future. To better guide planning and investment, the strategy has organized the corridor into 5 typologies, reflecting the diverse character, terrain, risks, and opportunities along the river. These typologies don't replace current uses. They help frame future conversations, clarify expectations, and reduce uncertainty. At a high level, we'd like to discuss the intent of the character behind these typologies over the next few slides. Gateways to Cochrane. This typology bookends the town with 2 key interest areas, welcoming people into Cochrane and setting a tone with clear orientation, essential amenities, and strong expression of the community's identity and experiences. This ensures that the corridor helps users understand where they are, where they can go, and what experiences await them along the way. Something we heard through the engagement is that many corridor visitors' favorite memories or experiences were time spent reading a book, listening to the birds, talking to their family and friends along the corridor. The natural discovery areas are intended to conserve and enhance the natural environment while providing space for low-impact, passive recreation activities. While the strategy cannot necessarily influence existing uses, it can guide the future of these areas, which provide opportunities for accessible terrain with viewpoints, vegetation and wildlife, offering passive exploration that lets visitors experience the river corridor's quieter side. The rugged and wild areas are meant to be a place where nature leads, characterized by steep slopes, untamed landscapes, preserving native ecosystems, supporting wildlife, and offering simple, low-impact access that lets the land remain as it is. Gather and play. The gather and play areas are a series of energetic community nodes that support active lifestyles, cultural expression, and social connection. Linking back to the guiding principles, these areas offer programming, amenities, and river access in a welcoming, park-based setting. Ideas like pop-up events, markets, vendor spaces, and a natural amphitheater were all recommendations that surfaced through community engagement. Energy and activation areas are the corridor central hotspot. An energetic mix of activities, a place where social spaces, potential food and beverage options, river access, and cultural programming intersect. This typology represents the heart of activity along the corridor and is intended to be a go-to gathering place that will interface with existing and proposed development in the Greystone neighborhood and connect users to other key destinations in town. To guide implementation, we've created a criteria-based prioritization system. It considers environmental risk, public safety, opportunities, complexity, partnerships, and funding. The strategy outlines potential short, mid, and long-term actions within the next 20-year horizon. As illustrated here, the strategy is a first step. Several other steps will need to occur prior to implementation, allowing for additional council and community touchpoints. This includes policy development, land use discussions, partnership exploration, and capital planning, amongst other things. To ensure transparency and accountability, the strategy proposes annual reporting to council. This includes progress updates, indicator tracking, funding considerations, and opportunities to celebrate wins, and update the implementation schedule as conditions change. Thank you for your time and continued leadership on this work. We welcome any questions in your direction. Thank you, Council.
All right, perfect. Council, can I get a motion before we start any conversation? Councilor McFadden?
I move first reading.
I don't think it's first
Nope,
reading
sorry.
because it's,
That we approve the Bow River strategy as presented.
okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
All right, conversation. Thank you.
So the feedback I had around this is probably not wholly surprising, as it was off-leash park related and dog use related. And so I wonder if you can expand. So what I heard was concerns that this plan would eliminate off-leash use at Jim Uffelman. And then also concerns about introducing the off-leash some off-leash space on the Riviera side of the river, and impacts around that use and policing of that use. And so my understanding of that is the changes suggested around Jim Uffelman are more around environmental conservation and mitigating the damage while still allowing off-leash use. But I do want you to expand on that, and then if you can also expand on the idea of the off-leash around on the Riviera side of the river, please and thank you.
I'll take it. Sure. Okay. So through the mayor to Councillor McFadden, the strategy itself outlines the kind of guiding principles. So If council chose to move forward with the strategy, and as we work through the implementation, there will be multiple touch points with council of if we choose to remove off-leash access or go with the inside of the strategy, it does outline on-leash access to the river. However, at any point when we are bringing forward the future projects of those location specifics, council will have the opportunity to choose if they would like to go with off-leash or on-leash access to the river. The riverfront part, there is, from my recollection, no recognition of putting an off-leash dog park in that area. The recommendation is to keep it as a natural discovery zone, so as it is currently. We were recognizing through the river access impact study that there is a lot of environmental impact to off-leash access. So that's why the recommendation throughout the strategy has been on-leash access to the river versus any more off-leash access, and finding off-leash areas outside of the river corridor.
Okay, and sorry, I think to the Riviera Run area?
Like in this area, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, concerns around that, and certainly I use the off-leash parks myself a fair bit. And so, I mean, obviously, I've certainly seen lots of people using that as an off-leash park, the entire bank, which it's not currently designated. So my concerns are actually because that one, you can actually see dogs being let run here, and 100 yards down, deer being, you know, running away from the dogs, and the owner's not even aware. So my concern's actually more around that, was, yeah, to enable, I guess it does make sense, some off-leash there, but if there's a strategy to kind of enforce it better, because there's a lot of areas in town where people are just adding, or just treating it like it's off-leash when it's not. Also including the area in Mitford Park, there's the smaller off-leash park along on the hill, and I've seen lots of people just kind of wander down the hill, and it's kind of along, as long as they're in sight of the fence, they treat it like an off-leash. So it's certainly an area we need to invest in, and I need to understand more. But I think we also need to do better with education and enforcement around that, because I think it gets abused throughout the community a fair bit. So any feedback on any of that, I guess?
For sure, through the chair to Councillor McFadden. So looking at the natural discovery, it does outline here to limit the off-leash access at the river consistently to reinforce conservation efforts. So it does talk in that area to be limiting the off-leash access as well. At the committee of the whole, we had talked about the opportunity of a off-leash dog park strategy for the entire community, really recognizing that there are a lot of dogs in Cochrane, and people look at their dogs as the part of their family and want those spaces for their dogs as well, and so that type of strategy may benefit Cochrane.
Yeah, and I'd certainly support that. That's one of the amenities people, probably the most high use amenity is the Jeff Muffelman off-leash space. So yeah, so those were, I just wanted to share the concerns that I heard. People do enjoy access with their dogs, but we need to find a way to balance off the effect on the riverbanks. Yeah, so those are my thoughts there. I did want to share, I liked some of the points being made, the Big Hill Creek confluence and the importance of identifying the trout spawning in that area. And so I really like the idea around the trout sanctuary and moving back kind of the picnic tables in the gathering areas, so it's less, doesn't encourage as much interface with the space as much as possible, and I like the education aspect of that. So I think one of my broader questions to the program, actually, and you've identified a little bit, how do we activate some of these points? How are they going to come forward? Because I would love to see something done on, the what was it called? Trout sanctuary plan, I guess. I don't know. But I'd love to see something like that done. So how do some of these items get activated? Does council champion them into the budget? Is it administration championing different pieces into the budget? How can we identify different parts we want to implement in the more short term versus perhaps ones that we want further discussion on?
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, inside of the strategy is the implementation plan, where it outlines how we would make decisions on what projects move forward, but that would also be council directed. So if the strategy is approved and you would like us to begin working on the implementation plan and bringing forward those budget items, or even if those budget items are included in 2027, we would be looking for that direction.
Okay. All right, those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Councillor Federico?
Yeah, Councillor McFadden kind of nailed both my questions. Mine was about how will short-term wins be brought back to council to activate on, so that one was kind of covered off and kind of what you were asking, the same thing. But the other one was about the engagement and just how will the community be able to weigh in on any decision-making prior to it happening. I think that was the biggest concern that I heard about the strategy itself. So the strategy, I think it's a wonderful presentation, just I think that people become concerned that we approve a long-range strategy, but then they feel that the decisions are just being made and then there's no opportunity for them to weigh back in. But I think you've addressed that that's absolutely going to be the case, and whether that means whatever type of public engagement needs to occur. I'm especially thinking about Jim Uffelman Park and changing any sort of usage. That's going to be a big one. And the only other thing that I wanted to ask, I know that it does say that there would be an erosion management policy probably identified within the strategy. And then we talked about the wetland policy and perhaps doing some updating there. And then we have the environmental task force wanting to do an assessment. Can we make sure that no matter what kind of policies or assessments that we're doing, that these are all linked together so that we're not obviously doing one, not looking at the other, and then they're kind of running in silo? If we're going to spend some money, let's just do a bang-up policy that's going to address all of those issues. Because I believe that they probably, especially the wetland policy, needs an update anyway. So I'm just making sure that we're not leaving those ones behind and then 2 years later another one pops up. So that would be my only other concern.
Councillor Singh?
Thank you. Could you clarify, as Councillor McFadden mentioned as well, Riviera Run, there's a lot of talk right now with the public that the dog park is, off-leash dog park is moving to that side. Is it happening, or is it, what is the situation onto that? Like, there's a lot of talk. And the second would be, as the strategy moves into implementation, can the administration speak to how community members and community associations will continue to be engaged as individual actions or corridors areas are advanced?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Singh, I'll address Riviera Run initially. I don't believe Riviera Run is currently a formal dog park. So the recommendation in the strategy was to begin reducing the off-leash usage. And so if that's through enforcement, I know this year we received grants for 2 municipal enforcement summer students that my team is working with on education, in like engagement handouts and various things like that. So those 2 students will be out in the parks able to provide more education on what the bylaws are in some of these park areas, and this would be a perfect example of it not being an off-leash area, and residents should be moving to either having their dog on leash or moving to an off-leash area. So that's what's outlined in the strategy, is that we would be reducing the off-leash usage. As far as engagement goes, I think probably one of the best examples I can have of this is the Samuel Spicer Park. So with the redevelopment of Parks and Active Living, and as we're building out our resources, you'll notice that when we do playground life cycling, so that would be like a capital project, we do community engagement for that. We have a bit of a vision of what that should look like, but we make sure that there is full community engagement before we're implementing a project, and that this would be the exact same process. We would make sure that there is a full community engagement process built into whatever project we begin implementing.
So in layman terms, if I may, we're not building an off-leash park at the Riviera Run.
No.
We're not destroying any vegetation or anything in there.
No, so the strategy outlines how that area should remain as natural discovery. We heard loud and clear from the community that they really do appreciate the opportunity to enjoy nature as it is there. So that's why the strategy outlines that we do need to put more enforcement in that area for off-leash.
Okay, sure, thank you. Thank you.
Counselor Gill?
One of my concerns is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the strategy wants to remove all off-leash use of dogs in our river spaces, which, for example, Jim Elfman, I understand that we need to remediate the banks. I understand that we have issues there environmentally. However, I do worry about limiting all access to water spaces. And so I just want to make it clear to also the public that this isn't us just taking away water access to dogs, and we're not going to just implement this overnight and remove dog access from Jim Elfman. So I just want to make that clear. And can you clarify as well that essentially we want this strategy is encouraging us to limit all dog use that's off leash at our riverfronts? Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Gill, thank you for creating that clarity. That's exactly it. If the strategy is approved this evening, it does not mean that as of tomorrow there's no off-leash access. That's not what would be happening. If council approves, then administration would move forward with the implementation plan, including council and the community. When we got to Jim Uffelman Park specifically, there would be a lot of conversation with the community and with council on what do we do with, how do we balance responsible recreation with environmental conservation, and how do we follow the strategy's guidelines within those projects specifically.
Okay, and is there any, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but I feel like there has to be a middle ground where you can entertain dog use and also take care of the environment. I don't know how much you know about this, but the Britannia community in Calgary has done a really good job of this. They have a really nice dog park and they have fenced access, but you can access a part of it off leash. And so that's kind of my only worry is I really feel like there has to be a middle ground where we can make more people happy. So more comments, but that's where I stand on that.
Over to Councillor Wilson.
Sure, thanks. I'd echo Councillor Gale's comments there that it seems like most of the friction that I hear about this entire plan is whether it's misinformed or if it's correct, that it might destroy some off-leash dog opportunities in Jim Uffelman Park. And I think from what I'm hearing, whether the plan is approved tonight or not approved tonight, the future of that will be decided sometime later. This is not a decision on off-leash at Jim Uffelman. Did I hear that correctly? Is that
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, you heard that correct.
okay? Excellent. What I put my light on for was, as we were looking on the map there, Area 9 South Ridge. I think like most people, that's the only part of the plan of this entire strategy that I haven't actively walked many times and don't know very well. Everywhere else is very familiar to me. On Area 9, there was a few different recommendations in there that caught my interest. They included things like bank swallow cavities, groundwater studies for several springs that were observed, natural buffers being needed for erosion around the bank. Just looking for any general comments on that area. What did we experience there? And I'm asking for the reason that this council or an upcoming council is going to be doing some sort of an approval with that land. I'd assume it's currently a gravel extraction area, but at some point it'll become part of the town of Cochrane in some capacity or another. And I was just wondering if there's any takeaways from observations we had about what it looks like down there on Area 9 South Ridge. What sort of natural things did we observe and what should council be aware of?
I just want to sorry, through the chair to Councillor Wilson, I just want to make sure that we're all talking about the same location, trying to find Area 9.
It would be the easternmost part of the plan, and it would be where a future pedestrian bridge would theoretically come from, come and connect the Trans-Canada Trail to Cochrane. It would be our entrance point into Cochrane on the eastern side.
So the east. I'll let you.
Sorry, it's a fairly big document with the appendices.
Yeah, it's a big document.
Try and get to, I think, through the chair to Councillor Wilson, you're
I can give you,
largely,
it's page 47 of the urban system strategy document is what I'm looking
Okay.
at right now with the.
yeah, we're just gonna jump down to the river access here just because it'll show us within that area what was observed, what the site assessments that were done. So we're just gonna pull that up if that's okay. Area 9, page, there we go. Oh, you're actually referring to that. Apologies.
I can also add that at some point, I forget what it's called, but we had preview of development come before council last turn for this area, and
Walker's Reach,
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson. So again, as they're getting ready, I think there's, my comments would be, I think there's some amazing opportunities in this. I've had the benefit of being on that property a number of times. You just think of the connections to Glenbow Park and the Trans-Canada Trail, as you referenced. Just that whole riverfront, as you got to the Southridge area and to the northern portion where it curves and comes around the bend of the river. Yeah, there's an opportunity for a real, at the point, an activation area. So again, there's significant banks, but also opportunities for a regional path to connect our community to Calgary as well as Glenbow Park. I just think this is one of the real opportunities of this strategy from my perspective. But I'm sure Mr. Nelson and Ms. Ambrose also have comments.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson. No, and we just pulled up on the screen here just some photos from the area that you're referring to, Southridge, Area 9, as you mentioned, Councillor Wilson. I think there's a number of things here that I identified with the site analysis, and I just have to remind myself of a number of these things. But obviously, there's ongoing operations are going to be throughout most of that area with gravel extraction, and so there's been a number of recommendations as that's complete and being perhaps turned back over to community development or otherwise to look at how you could revegetate and perhaps have wildlife come back to that area in the future, just given its previous natural state. And so there's a number of recommendations referring to that. Groundwater studies, as you referenced, is something as well, because some of the springs that were identified, those would be things as you go through the planning process and more of the planning work that would need to be done before obviously the town considers that for ultimate approval. And then there's some pieces there in regards to how you can create some separation from the river to future development in the future with natural buffers and otherwise. And so there's as I think Mr. Hyman highlighted, this is a beautiful piece of land, obviously, within the town and an area that will evolve over time. So there's, within the current strategy here, a recognition of how that can maybe come to fruition in the future as some of those uses play out over time.
Okay, last question from me, just to help me understand. I also am having trouble understanding how this plan fits into whatever we choose to do in the future. And so if a upcoming subdivision comes before us, we've already seen Walker's Reach as an example there for this zone comes before council, how would this plan help us guide what we approve or don't approve of a development that took place on Area 9 Southridge? Just how does that help fold together with whatever council should approve in the future?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, this would be a strategic document that council would want to consider, administration want to consider as you're reviewing that ARP, area structure plan, whatever it is that comes forward. In Walker's Reach's case, if they're coming forward with the community development, you'd be looking at the strategy to influence and guide how that shows up. So maybe how it interfaces with the river, how different amenities show up, where they show up, how maybe you conserve or preserve certain areas or renaturalize them in this case, whatever the case might be. The strategy speaks to all those different elements, and you'd be looking for their plan to be responding to that.
Okay, thank you. And obviously administration, when they're working with whatever said developer, would be engaged in that before council even sees it. I assume that would be the interface of the plan.
Through the chair, Councillor Wilson, you're correct.
Yeah, and I would comment that Qualico as well as Madley Development have been engaged in this process with Ms. Ambrose and Urban Systems throughout the process, so they're well aware of the expectations for their developments and the benefits that access to the river provides them and what we're working towards.
Okay, thank you. That was the only part that caught my attention of the entire plan, and thanks for being here to provide clarity for it. Thanks.
Before we go around to council, I want to weigh in myself as well. This is a really great plan. There's like 100+ pages of really fantastic content. The community has not said much about a lot of it, and that is a sign of agreement and support. When silence is normally approval when it comes from the public. The one area that every single one of us, I think, up here have heard about is this dog park issue. I understand we're not making a binding decision this evening about the future of the dog park, but this is the beginning of a conversation to adjust the access to the river And I would suggest that it would be wise of council to send a strong message to the community to respond to the one big piece of feedback that we've received, that people want us to be very careful about limiting dog access to the river. And I think we should look at making a very minor adjustment to this otherwise perfect plan, just to clarify that. So like on page 66, there's this paragraph that I think appears in a few places where it says limit off-leash access near or at the river. Even if we just replace that word limit with better manage or something to that extent, I think it would put a lot of the community's concerns to rest. It would say, it would send a message, we're not taking it away, but it's gonna be a conversation we're gonna continue to explore in the years ahead as to how to do it thoughtfully and make sure that our natural spaces are being protected. That is something I would suggest. It would require an amendment from council, or a motion for an amendment rather. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Otherwise, fantastic plan. Super happy with everything else. I really hope to see it all come to fruition. I shall turn it back over to council. So Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, on your proposed amendment, I can certainly support that. That's like having read through it and went back and read the one section, it looks like I had misread it. Yeah, I think we certainly need to find a balance of being able to make sure we're conserving, protecting the banks, but also trying to find a way to allow some off-leash space access to the river. I think it's an amenity that people really enjoy, and I think it's something we should continue to find a way to activate in balance with other things. So I'd certainly support that amendment. That was going to be kind of the statement I had there. And then on a different topic, not related to the dogs. If ready for something different?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was looking through the energy and activation and the gather and play sections, and in both of those, I see we're like encouraging places, kids' play spaces, those type of things. And I know the Parks and Recreation Committee, that group has always been trying to advocate for natural-based play or more risk-based play. Mm-hmm. And I know that plan's not quite finished, and I didn't really see that in here, but I don't know if we need to change the language or can strengthen the language, but I would really like to see, as we're looking to build out the energy and activation and gather and play sections, that we're encouraging that natural play spaces, and that we're being deliberate about kind of catching some of the other areas as well. I know, 3 years ago, it's not natural play, but we had the skateboarding group come and say they'd like some micro parks and access, and so as we're looking, if we could look at some of the other needs that we're trying to balance off in the community as well. So I don't really know how to build that into the plan, but I just wanted to signal those type of ideas that I've been hearing.
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, I think, excellent comments, and obviously the ability to leverage other needs within the community, within these spaces, would be really important. I think the key here is that this is just setting the framework and the principles and the strategy overall, that the intent of the places that you're articulating, gather and play, as well as energy and activation, is to bring people to those spaces for different uses. And so that opportunity, I would suggest, would be there at a principal level. And it's then working through concepts and those kind of things, which would then identify what uses actually show up.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't precluding it. The door was open to those type of things. So I'll continue to advocate for that in the other policy documents.
Councilor McFadden, before I pass it along, would you be willing to actually make a motion for an amendment to replace the word limit at the top of the second column on page 66 to better manage? And we can discuss that amendment.
Fine. I will move the amendment as proposed.
Is that procedurally correct to
we
do
do
it that
that?
way? If
Sure. Whatever.
It's certainly, if council, I don't think there's any issues with that.
okay, well, council, before
To the mayor, there's actually 2 instances of that on that page. So we would remove both of those.
so that's a good point to bring up. I actually did notice that, but I'm glad you brought attention to it. So we still have the current light priority, but let's keep conversation just to that amendment. So currently, as it has been proposed, it is just the pink area, the gather and play area on page 65 and 66. If council is wanting to talk about better manage as opposed to limit, we should also look at the other areas. It was the blue zone as well, correct? The natural discovery is where it also appears in the plan?
To the mayor, it's under the energy and activation zone. So it does appear a couple of times in the document itself. So there's also natural discovery where it talks about limit off-leash access near or at the river. We had brought forward some suggestions on perhaps maybe some amendments that council may want to consider instead of this. So under gather and play on page 66, instead of limit off-leash access near or at the river, we have a suggestion of position riverside areas as shared social and recreation spaces where keeping dogs on leash supports safety and a positive experience for everyone while encouraging off-leash play to take place in a purpose-built locations designed for it. So that still leaves a flexibility of when council comes to the project of what happens in Jim Uffelman. There's a decision that needs to be made, but it is not directly stating that we're limiting off-leash dog use. If that is something council would like to consider.
So that's what page of this?
66.
I was hoping, if I could jump in, not to leave the door open for consideration of getting rid of off-leash river access in that zone, but to close the door and make clear to the public that we're not doing that with this amendment. And so the conversation I was trying to raise with council is, do we want to make that, do we want to leave it open-ended with better manage as opposed to limit across all the zones, or just the one zone that appears in Jim Uffelman? The pink area on 66.
If I could, through the chair, if you move forward with that amendment, you want to do that in gather and play as well as energy and activation, just because all of that is Jim Uffelman Park crosses both of those different typologies. So if you want to make that amendment, you'd want to touch those two areas.
And Mr. Mayor, the only suggestion, as we were talking over here at the bench, under general recommendations, it's proactively manage off-leash use at the beginning, and perhaps using proactively manage would be better than just better manage, just as a friendly suggestion and consistency through the document.
Do you accept administration's recommendation as a friendly amendment to the amendment that I suggested?
I'm sure that's legislatively sound. Yes, that's what I meant.
Okay, so we're talking about changing the word limit to proactively limit, and did we want to do it through all the zones or just the one? Proactively. Not proactively limit, that's the opposite of what we're trying to achieve. Proactively manage. Okay. All right, and council, so do we want to do just the one piece of Jim Uffelman that's pink, or do you want to do it throughout the whole thing? Let's turn it over to someone else.
Yeah.
You're still red. So over to Councillor McDonald first.
To answer that specific question?
Yeah, let's keep the conversation to the amendment of what area do we want to say proactively manage off-leash river access? There's the pink area is what we're currently discussing, but there's other zones as well. Do you have a map you could pull up to help guide this conversation?
Yeah, why wouldn't we?
I'll just find the...
I think we leave our options further open if we consistently adjust it throughout.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I could just offer one point here. In some of the areas like Wild and Rugged or Natural Discovery, there's areas you're trying to conserve and protect. As mentioned earlier, the spawning areas and whatnot, where you probably won't want any off-leash dogs getting into the water, especially certain times of the year, different parts of the season. So the areas that I think that I currently have off-leash access, those are the ones that you're looking maybe to proactively manage, and that makes sense with the two areas you've identified at this point.
Sure. So proactively manage what are already off-leash dog river access areas, with the assumption that anyone who's using river access for their dog that is not an off-leash area is at risk already of getting in trouble from a compliance perspective. So that makes sense to me that we would adjust the strategy to just be referencing current areas where dogs have access to the river. that's unclear, I'm sure, but I think proactively manage the currently established river access for dogs is my vote.
Okay, so let's turn it over to Councilor Verdejo.
I have more to say.
Oh, sorry.
Just come back to me.
Yeah,
when it's
because let's just
time.
keep it to the amendment to begin with. Councilor Verdejo.
Yeah, just for the amendment, I think that kind of what was described is that it's not just one zone or one area, that it overlaps in different places. So I think just saying proactively manage covers all of that. And if there's a reason that we need to limit certain areas, then I think that's where we can have that further discussion. But I think it makes sense to not pick and choose on 2 pages what that language could be, just make it that way consistent throughout the entire document for not only for easy reading, but for people to understand that at some point we might limit it, but it is under proactively manage, not cut it down completely.
Okay. Councilor Wilson? If I could.
On the amendment, could we drill down to what we're actually trying to accomplish, which I think I do understand, but I don't really care what wording we use. I'm fine with what we've fallen on, but what we're trying to do, at least my assumption is, we want to have an active conversation at some point in the future about what we want to do with off-leash parks as a community, and this language simply assures the public that it's not going to happen in some sneaky planning document way that all of a sudden a bylaw is going to be changed. It'll be an active conversation in front of council, and we'll get our attentions on the floor at that point. Is that the spirit of what we're doing with this amendment? I'm all for
Yes.
it, and I think whatever wording we choose is fine, including what's already been put forward.
Okay. Councilor McDonald, back to you.
I agree with Councillor Wilson, as long as the public is really clear that this will come back in front of us if there are changes to dog access in the future. And I agree, like proactively manage feels fine to me. It feels like there's foresight and there's conversation and it'll be intentional. And then I'm just really glad we're having this conversation, even if it is preliminary, because the passion of our dog owners in Cochrane almost deserves its own typology when I think of the Bow River strategy. So I think this deserves the airtime that it's getting.
Okay, Councilor Verdejo.
The only other point that I wanted to bring up is that before any changes are made to any sort of off-leash usage, whether it's river access or not, I really do think that we need to have a direct timeline of when other off-leash areas are going to come on throughout the community overall. I will not be in support of limiting access to anything if we don't have anywhere to move people to. I think that's a very important factor that we need to talk about, and as well as perhaps maybe have I know that I think I brought this up, and I know that neighborhoods have certain plans, but maybe we can actually have something that we can share out with the community that within 1 year, you can expect to see an off-leash park in this community. It might not be a year, maybe it's 2 years. I know that that can't be guaranteed. However, I think that we've been waiting a long time for some of these neighborhoods to actually produce something. And I think even if we have 1 or 2 that come on, that's gonna help take that load off of the park as it is. But right now, we have nowhere to move people, and I wouldn't be in support of moving anybody until we actually have a place to move people to.
Councilor Fidego, thank you for bringing that up, and I know that you'd previously brought that up. We sent an email to council today with a summary. Many of you didn't probably have an opportunity to see it before the meeting, but Mr. Hubble's team did an excellent job in terms of outlining exactly where all the dog parks and future dog parks will be within our community. And I think that is something that eventually we'll look to share out to the public as well. But council does have that today.
Thank you. I did not read that. I
No,
think it came in quite late.
it was this afternoon.
Thanks.
Okay, so now time for the most awkward part of my entire job up here as chair. Let's get clarity on this motion. So we are talking about an amendment to change the words limit off-leash access near or at the river to proactively manage off-leash access near or at the river, and the motion is to apply it to all 3 areas at which it occurs in the plan. Is that correct, Councillor McFadden?
Yes, that's my
Okay.
current understanding. I
Okay.
just want to make sure that makes sense to the
Okay.
people, I think.
Does anybody in administration or council need further clarity on that amendment? Okay, well, let's vote on the amendment. This is not the policy as a whole. All in favor of the amendment as moved? Carried unanimously. Excellent. Now let's go back to discussing the original motion, which is to adopt this entire plan. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. So back to the strategy broadly. One of my favorite goals that you put on the screen was ensure there's a place for everyone at the river, and I really see that in the strategy. I said it last time, but I'll say it again. You've got the adventure seekers, your restaurant goers are represented, bird watchers, paddle boarders. We talked a lot about dog owners today, and I just think the representation is really, really strong. I was curious, there's so much strong guidance and so much strong recommendation for future residential, but do you see just as strong of guideposts for future industrial, just to protect anything that might be coming Cochrane's way that wants to be close to the river? And then I wanted to just kind of bring this back to the NEP work that's happening with the task force. I was looking at the recommendations towards the end of the strategy, looking at what assessments are being recommended for all of the quite sensitive areas and the tributaries. And so I just wanted to kind of put it out there that it'd be really great if we could talk about where there's alignment between the NEP work being put forward versus the Bow River strategy, make sure that we're making the best use of our resources when we talk about those future assessments, and then that list moves forward with our new environmental compliance position whenever that person gets rolling. But I feel like there's kind of a fulsome list that could be formed between the two discussions, and there's probably some overlap, so I just wanted to put that out there as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Was there any response? Anything else?
No, we had planned to do exactly that. Sorry, through the chair to Councillor McDonald, as we were working through the assessments and then the implementation plan, we would make sure that we're cross-referencing and not duplicating work, but also ensuring that all of the work being done makes sense and in the correct order.
Councillor McDonald.
Ed, is there an appropriate application of the Bow River strategy for industrial and how that'll be informed in the future?
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, through the chair, Councillor McDonald, I would suggest that the strategy applies to any uses that you're thinking about in the future. The intent of the strategy of taking a bit of an offset from the river and just as a recognition of those interfaces being critically important, if they're natural, if they're developed, whatever it might be, and thinking about how that impacts your river and the different typologies and different character areas you're trying to achieve. And obviously water quality, water health, all those things are always important, regardless of the strategy or otherwise, to be thinking about through any application you see that's close to the river, well, and beyond, but for sure beside the river.
So we would reference this regardless of who came forward asking to do what. This would guide us regardless of the topic. Great.
To the chair, correct, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Any further conversation? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor of the plan as amended? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Excellent work. Thank you both.
Thank you, Council.
And that is the end of our business section of the agenda this evening. Any notices of motion?
Item
Oh,
5D.
sorry. Item
Mr. Mayor?
5D, yes, thank you. Just reading the agenda. So item 5D, Drew, do you care to comment on that?
Sure. I just wanted to share with council, I provided the email earlier today. We had a number of items in the committee of the whole that aren't ready to proceed. And we felt it would be important to take advantage of the time that we had with council. So I know council's been expressing the desire to have strategic sessions. So I'm working with ELT tomorrow to finalize the items that would be on that. But next Tuesday evening, we thought it would be an opportunity to meet down at the station, have our first strategic session, and provide you some updates on different things that administration are working on. So that was really the intent. Rather than having a very short meeting or perhaps canceling the meeting, we thought we'd take advantage of the opportunity to meet and spend some time on a number of different things. As you recall, or you're aware, we're going to be talking about, we have our session on strategy tomorrow evening. So depending on how that goes, we can also talk about some of the things that come out of that. And there's a number of other items we can also bring you up to speed on.
Okay, so can I get a motion from council the motion would be to cancel the next committee of the whole meeting? And then do we need a motion to actually have a strategic session? No, so we'll just a motion to cancel the committee of the whole meeting? Councilor Federico?
I can make the motion that we can cancel next week's committee of the whole meeting. I am just curious, how will the information from that strategy session come back out to the public as just to maybe some of the issues that we have discussed? Will there be kind of a communication bulletin or something that can be released to the public that, although that information is not public knowledge because they're not going to be streamed, however, we are taking the time to discuss XYZ issues?
Ms. Robertson is behind me, and I'm sure she's encouraging me to make sure that I remind council that there will be no decisions made in that. But I do hear you, Councilor Federico, that I think it's important to share with the public what's occurring in those meetings. And really, they're based around strategy, based around different opportunities and updates to council on different initiatives that administration is working on based on the conversations we've had to date with council. So I think we can have some information coming out of those on the various items, and we'll work to figure out exactly how that occurs. I would confirm, though, many of these items are going to come back to council at a later date, and we will reference the conversations that we've had as well.
Yep, and I would also add that I would encourage council to, anytime they want to share information with the public, to make use of the council reports to the fullest extent possible. Okay, any further conversation on that item? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried unanimously. Now that is the end of the business section of our meeting. Any notices of motion this evening? Seeing none, speaking of council reports, I shall dive into my mayor's report. Okay, over the past few weeks, I have been continuing to focus a very large part of my time on meetings with the key stakeholders, businesses, and decision makers that are part of Cochrane's long-term planning and strategic objectives. Over the past few weeks, I have been in meetings with Rocky View County councillors, the Mayor of Canmore, the group working toward the Calgary to Banff Rail Project, Cochrane Society for Housing Options, a group of local healthcare advocates, as long as Councillor Singh, who organized that meeting, more meetings with some local religious leaders, some MLA hopefuls, and of course, several prominent land developers who are seeking to advance their business objectives within our municipal borders. Now, during all of those conversations, I am always explicitly clear with everyone that they will need to bring their lands and proposals forward to council for proper public consideration. And I want to share that with specific regard to local developers who have approached myself, with you in full transparency, that I'm continuing to highlight with all of them that I'm expecting council is going to be working on some sort of growth management strategy, as has been discussed at great length during the municipal election and in our conversations amongst ourselves. All of the developers want to know what is happening in Cochrane. And the message that I have been sharing is that it is my hope isn't that I anticipate council will attempt to stop growth, but rather I anticipate council will be looking to ensure we have a policy framework in place to ensure we are growing in a way that makes sense for Cochrane. It doesn't mean no growth, it means smarter growth and more controlled growth. As we, as a council, are continuing to move forward with our strategic planning process, as was just highlighted here this evening, I am extremely eager to move forward with that growth management work so that we can provide some policy clarity for Cochrane's residents, local businesses, and the development industry so they can continue to adjust their expectations and plans accordingly. One more subtle but important update I have on that is with regards to the communication of that pending policy. During the municipal election, I spoke a lot about a sustainable growth plan, and I have received consistent feedback that that title sounds more like an environmental sustainability initiative and less like a growth management tool. However, that is not the intent. The intent is to better manage Cochrane's ever-present growth pressures. So I have been thinking over the past few weeks about how to reframe this upcoming policy proposal in a way that makes more sense. What I have come up with is reframing it as a balanced growth plan, which can address much of what I feel many of you, my colleagues here on council, have also expressed a desire to work towards. I believe a well-developed balanced growth plan can encompass everything from Councillor McFadden's sequential development strategy to Councillor Wilson's financial planning framework, to Councillor Gale's intermunicipal agreement interests, to Councillor Singh's seniors housing efforts, to Councillor Federico's community first approach, and Councillor McDonald's interest in diverse housing options. I know all of you have interests far above and beyond those points that I have mentioned here, but I wanted to highlight that I believe we can come up with a balanced growth plan that addresses everything I am hearing from each of you, and then some. One more thing on top of all of that, which has been on my mind greatly the past few weeks, is economic development. Ever since we saw the presentation on our upcoming economic development strategy, I have been thinking a lot about how important that work is and how I really hope we can prioritize it higher here in Cochrane in the years ahead. Looking back over the past several years, I think that our local economic policies and priorities didn't get the attention that they deserve, and I hope we can change that. I think now more than ever, Cochrane, and actually all of Canada as a whole, need to be focused on encouraging job creation and wealth generation. With that in mind, I want to expand the scope of any potential balanced growth strategy to place a high importance on economic development. At the core of what Cochrane is planning for the future, I think we need to be looking to slow down residential development, but on the other hand, massively speed up business, commercial, and light industrial development. Part of the balance we need to bring to our growth plans is that we need to be focusing on not only encouraging local private sector jobs, but also diversifying our tax base. I have been talking with several members of our administration about how I can personally help with this work. So, as I'm attending regular meetings with stakeholders, as I have been over the past few weeks, I have a new key policy priority in mind, where I'm going to be continually looking to pitch Cochrane's business opportunities to groups who could potentially create new jobs in Cochrane. That means supporting existing businesses as well as attracting new ones to move here. And all of that work can plug into the great work being done by our Economic Development Department. The advocacy work I have been doing on the Banff to Calgary Rail project is an important puzzle piece of this. I also pitched Cochrane to a large room of Calgary business leaders at a Chinese New Year celebration last week, which I believe is actually going to result in meaningful follow-up meetings right here at the Ranch House. And there will be more to come as we work through our economic development strategy. So, to reiterate, I have had a bit of a paradigm shift the past few weeks. When I was elected a few months ago, I told the public that my top priority would be slowing down growth. Looking ahead, I think over the next 4 years, that needs to be adjusted ever so slightly. My absolute top priority in working with all of you, I wanted to remain slowing down residential growth, but also rapidly speeding up our business growth. It's a bold commitment, but I think we can do it. And last but not least, on some lighter topics, I want to take this opportunity to talk about some big stuff happening in Cochrane sports communities. First, I want to give a quick shout out to the Cochrane Generals, who have some playoffs games coming up. I wish them the best of luck, and I would encourage everyone to go and check out a few games if you have the time. And I want to officially acknowledge and encourage Logan Pletz, who is making his Olympic debut as a member of Cochrane's biathlon team at Milano Cortina Winter Olympics this year. On behalf of the entire community, I want to say good luck, Logan. We're all cheering you on. That is my mayor's report. Can I get a motion to accept? Councilor McFadden.
I'll make the motion to accept the mayor's report.
Okay, any conversation, questions?
Actually, well, thank you very much for the update. I also agree we need to really lean in over the next 4 years in the economic development front and how we can broaden and diversify our tax base beyond leaning so heavily on the residential. So I'm glad we're starting to have those conversations. And I actually was having a recent conversation where somebody was asking what the status of the Calgary to Banff railway line was. Can you just provide a little bit more information about where that might be at?
Continuing to pitch the Premier and the ministers at every opportunity. So I've been meeting with the mayors. We have the group of mayors who are regularly collaborating in favor of the proposal. There's 4 of us. Myself, Mayor of Canmore, Mayor of Banff, and Mayor Farkas of Calgary. One key update is actually I met with I was at that business event in Calgary that I mentioned in my speech here, but I was actually sitting at a table with 4 NDP MLAs, and they had actually never really heard about the project. As I was talking to them about it, I realized that there has been a lot of work advocating on that front to the United Conservative Party, and not enough to the NDP, who I think are possibly serious contenders in the upcoming provincial election. So one of the pieces I want to do next with the mayors we're working with is actually reach out to those MLAs, and they are awaiting an email, but I need to collaborate with the 4 mayors first. I want to get together with the NDP caucus and get them as well as their leader, Naheed Nenshi, talking about the project. And there are no other updates at this time. But the work is ongoing. We are talking about it very regularly, and every time I have the opportunity to bring it up with provincial and regional stakeholders, it is on the agenda. Any other questions? Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, thanks for the report, Mayor Nagel. I'm wondering what tool or strategy you're planning on advancing the balanced growth strategy, how will you plan on advancing that forward? Is it something that we're going to be discussing more in strategic sessions, do you imagine? Is it a notice of motion of some sort that you'll be bringing forward? What are the next steps in your vision that you're laying out here? Not that I'm oppositional at all, I'm quite supportive of it, but just how will that look for council and public?
That is an exceptional question, one that I think about all the time. So firstly, we need to continue on with the strategic planning process that we're going through in these strategic sessions. And the most important thing we need to do as a group is work together to produce a more detailed strategic plan that outlines our key objectives. Following the development of council's update of that strategic plan, our administration is then going to be going forwards with a corporate plan where they're actually presenting and planning the way to actually deliver on those strategic objectives. Now, that whole process we're looking at is taking, perhaps Mr. Blanchett can comment, but I think probably like a 6+ month timeline before that's all wrapped up or well underway. And something I've been talking with our interim CAO about is trying to get a growth piece ahead of council prior to that. But what that means is before we can do that, I'm also trying to build broad consensus among the group to make sure everybody really does identify this, because this work is a very large priority. It's not something that someone's going to be able to do off the corner of their desk. And so before I personally go off and make some notice of motion, I want to make sure that we're all aligned that this is what we want to be doing. And so the answer to your question is really starting our strategic session tomorrow night. So
fair enough. Like you, I've had a notice of motion or two that I've considered on this topic as a way of advancing certain policies that I want to see come forward. And as I've talked with administration, it seems like we're going to be seeing those things coming forward. And so I hope that's exactly how it goes, where we start to see these things fall into place and we actually have a strategy and a plan for exactly how council wants to attack balanced growth in Cochrane. But, I guess we'll see as we move forward, and thank you for fleshing that out a bit.
excellent. Anything else? I would just like to say I appreciate you taking the time to ask questions and comment on my mayor's report. This is something I think our organizations really lack, this space where we have meaningful policy conversations in public and there's an opportunity to really hash it out. So yeah, Councillor Federico?
I have one comment to make, is that you missed a couple of Cochranites who are actually in the Olympics.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so there's Kira Alexander, who's in alpine skiing, and Skylar, I hope I don't butcher the last name, Sybin, who's in bobsledding.
Okay.
So just so that we give congrats to all three who are at the Olympics right now.
All right. I sincerely apologize. I will confess, I just saw the one news article on Cochrane now. I was like, wow, that's great. And I added it to my mayor's report. So thank you for correcting me. And good luck to all of the athletes. Thank you, Councillor Federico. Okay. Motion to accept mayor's report, or do we have the motion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any council reports this evening? Let's go with Councillor McFadden first.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I just wanted to highlight, so I'm council's rep to the SLS RPS Board of Directors, so the Spray Lakes Board of Directors. And so we had a great meeting, I think it was just last week even, time flies when you're having fun, on the 30th anyhow. And the board is currently working through a process for new Board of Director recruitment. And so they have their AGM coming up in April, I believe, and they're just in the process of finalizing what opening the doors to recruitment will look like. And so there'll be more information to follow, but I know there's been a lot of interest from members of the public getting an opportunity to participate in that board of directors. And so that recruitment process is just being finalized, and then will be public here fairly shortly. So keep your ears and eyes out, as that opportunity will be available to our community volunteers.
Okay. Any comments, questions on Councillor McFadden's report? Any other reports? Councillor Singh?
Thank you. So since 2009, this annual outdoor hockey tournament has honored the memory of Lindsay Kimmett and grown into something truly special. Through the Lindsay Kimmett Memorial Foundation, the Kimmett Cup has raised more than $3 million to support meaningful local initiatives. It's more than a game, it's about community, connection, and coming together for a purpose. I had the opportunity to attend on Saturday, and despite the warm weather, the community spirit was strong and alive. Also, I'm helping to organize a Family Day community breakfast on Monday, February 16th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Stacked Restaurant. From neighbors to family, one table at a time. Held in partnership with Stacked and My Reach Alberta, This event brings residents together while supporting a local business. A free express breakfast will be available to the first 100 people, first come, first serve. The breakfast is about connections and belonging, bringing people together as a community, whether they are new to the area or long-term residents. And also, you're invited, council as well, and administration as well, for a community conversation focused on aging well and supporting seniors. The event is held on March 7th, 2026, from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. at Cochrane Alliance Church. This discussion brings together community members and organizations to exchange ideas, identify shared challenges, and strengthen collaboration in support of seniors. Your presence would add meaningful insight to the conversation. And lastly, as my colleagues have said, to all Cochranites and Team Canada, all the best at the Winter Olympics for 2026. Thank you.
Great. Any questions, comments about Councillor Singh's report? Seeing none, any final reports? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of, actually, we need a motion to accept council reports. Councillor McDonald,
I make a motion to accept the councilors' reports.
all in favor? Carried. All right. That is, I believe, the end of the public portion of our meeting. We do have some closed session items on the agenda, all of which we have a legislative requirement of discussing in a closed session. So thank you, everybody who has been with us this far. Have a great week. We need a motion to go into that closed session now. Councillor McDonald?
I motion to go in camera.
Okay, conversation, all in favor?